Hey, have that double shot of espresso and take the cat out of the microwave, folks. It's time for .NET Rocks, the internet audio talk show for .NET developers. I'm your host in New London, Connecticut, Carl Franklin. And as always, my partner in crime from down south, Mark Dunn. Good evening, Mark.
Howdy, Carl. We're in the deep south tonight.
Again, yeah, it's time for another stellar episode, and I'm real excited. Are you excited?
You know, I'm jacked up higher than a prom dress in June. That's how excited I am.
Good Lord, what have we come to? For the love of God. Well, hey, you know, I was doing a bit of research on some of the old technology. You know, with all the new technology that's out, people are forgetting about the Windows API. You know, when we have classes in the framework, the Windows API is something nobody talks about anymore. But I was going through some hidden documentation that I found from the corporate vaults at Redmond, Washington, and I found some undocumented Windows API calls. They're in the GDI DLL. You want to know what they are?
Yeah, what do they do?
Well, the first one, you know the bitblit function, bitblt. Yeah. Well, I found one called splitblit, which returns the uneaten portion of a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich.
Ha 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 ha.
Yeah. And I found another one, which is really interesting, called Get Washington, D.C. Yep. You pass it $1 million, and it returns a pointer to a seat in Congress.
Very funny,
I
Carl.
thought that was good.
That was good, yeah.
Yeah. So, what have you been doing this week? Obviously, you're in Montgomery, Alabama again, teaching at the college down there.
That's right. I'm teaching a very interesting class this week. It's an ADO.NET class, and I actually have a student that had to sub for another one that couldn't make it. So I was going through the class going, you know, what's your experience? And this guy had never used a PC, never used Windows. He's completely a mainframe programmer.
Oh, no.
So this is a kind of a third level, pretty advanced ADO.NET class, and it's been interesting.
Wow.
He's needed a little help.
Yeah,
but,
I guess so.
He's doing very well. So he seems to be having fun.
That's good. So are the machines working and you're not having any other ancillary problems?
No. Are you talking about the machines in the classroom or my own personal machine?
Well, we know your personal machine is having a problem.
Yeah, my personal machine is sick.
And that's actually why you're on the phone tonight instead of our nice high bandwidth connection usually here. Is because your laptop has some problems. I guess it's been dropping audio. Yeah,
that's right. It sounds like Rain Man when I play it back. Time for Wapner.
Good Lord. So you've actually got a new laptop on order from Dell, right?
Well, I was talking to my wife. It came in today, so I can't wait to get home and run it through its paces. Excellent.
Well, we can't wait to get you back on the normal sound here, but we'll live with it for now, right?
Yeah, we'll make it work.
We'll make it work, exactly. We have this, well, up here we call it Yankee ingenuity. Down there. Hey, you know, speaking of the South, we're doing a Lost Weekend. Our guest tonight, Russ Fustino, and I are doing a Lost Weekend this weekend, and tomorrow, not tomorrow, but Saturday, obviously this isn't going to work because the people are listening to this after we taped it, but as we're speaking, this Saturday is the Kentucky Derby, and we're going to have to pass out some mint juleps in class and get the tall hats, you know, and put it on. So I'm looking forward to that. Well, anyway, our guest tonight, it's been a long time coming, this guest. We've wanted to have him on for quite a while, and just because of sort of the natural synergy in the way that we've been working together with this guest. He is the principal technology specialist at Microsoft in the New England district, who, among other things, does a regular free show, a day-long presentation on a quarterly basis at all of the Microsoft sales in Microsoft centers in New England, called Russ's Toolshed, where he has unique content, gives out lots of goodies and tchotchkes and best practices and great code and free code. And these are free events that seem to only exist in the New England district. he's writing a book for Microsoft Press called Tinkering with VisualStudio.net. And on top of all that is a fantastic guy and a great programmer. Will you please welcome Russ Fustino?
Well, thanks, Carl.
Yeah, thank you.
Mark, how you doing?
Hey, Russ, man, I am doing excellent. How are you?
Just great. Still pumped up from our .NET launch event we had here today in Connecticut.
Still pumped from using the mouse, huh?
That's a great book, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
Dilbert.
Yeah. Dilbert book.
Yeah, we did. We had the Visual Studio 2003 launch coupled with the Windows 2003 server launch, which is going around the country. And our event was the first one in the district, and it was at Foxwoods Casino today. And you were sort of central to the developer track.
Yeah, we had 3 tracks today. Well, we had the keynote to kick things off, and then the IT Pro track, and then a developer architect track, and then the track that I headed up was the developer track.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So there was 3 tracks, and we had about, what would you say, about 1,000 people today?
Yeah, probably over that. Probably closer to 1,200.
1,200. That's pretty good. Jill Delano, who organizes the events for Microsoft, was telling us that we usually have, we were expecting 60% drop-off, and there was only 33% drop-off, so a lot more people came to this than have been coming traditionally to these things in the past. And that's encouraging.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was a good atmosphere, a lot of great questions, a lot of excitement, a lot of hand clapping and, cheering and stuff like that on some of the different features and stuff we were showing off, so that was pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I got some messages from the regional director list. As you know, some of the regional directors participated in the launch events all over the world. And I got some notes that were passed around, with people's responses worldwide about this launch. Let me just read some to you, if you don't mind. This is from Vinod Uni, who is the regional director, or one of the regional directors in India. He's in North India. Hi all, just arrived back from the Windows Server VSNet 2003 launch event here in New Delhi, India, which due to its location launched it ahead of most of you, and this was on April 24th. After the keynote, which was a great overview on what things are and where they are headed by the MS team here, the 3 tracks were divided, yada yada yada. I personally took charge of 2 sessions in the developer track, an intro to VSNet 2003 and Windows Server 2003 as an application platform. Both were for a little bit over an hour each. Some comments. 1. Developers were very interested in the WSE demos and IIS6. 2. Many questions regarding side-by-side .NET Framework version installation. 3. Queries regarding SOAP, XML, and UDDI services. 4. The COM Plus 1.5 demos were a bit lengthy. I could see some people starting to look around, getting bored. You may want to take a call on showing all the demos or not. 5, the slides do not have images, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there's some other things. But anyway, so that was a nice little update. And this one comes from Thomas Lee in the UK. He says, I'm sitting in the UK Windows 2003 launch in London, listening to Microsoft talk about the products, and typing this mail via wireless, all using a laptop that runs on Windows Server 2003 RTM. Windows Server rocks.
Cool.
That was cool. Andrew Brust says, let's see. The dev track in New York City also played to packed houses twice. The New York, New Jersey sub did their launch as a half-day event that repeated first showing at 9 a.m. and the second one at 1:30 p.m. There will be more events in New Jersey, Stamford, Connecticut, and Rochester, New York. He'll be doing Rochester. Okay, so there's some stuff there. So let's see.
Yeah, we got Boston coming up on Tuesday. We're sold out there. Over 3,000 people registered there.
Yeah. Funny how these free events attract big crowds, Grin. Response was very positive, and people were eager to soak up the material. Morning crowd was standing room only in a room that seated around 400, and afternoon was a close second. Audience especially liked it when I showed the C# IDE enhancements and presented them in a self-effacing way as concessions made to lazy VB programmers like me who don't like to manually type out event handler stubs and delegate definitions. When I say, okay, here you go, lazy sloth VB developer, and hit the tab key to generate the code, people laughed and clapped.
Yeah, we had a similar response today too when I was demoing that.
Right.
Yep.
That's great.
Whole new meaning to the tab key.
Overall, good stuff. .NET is getting bigger and bigger. Finally, Thomas Lee wrote another one after, that was from the launch where he was writing it. He says, today was the online launch here event in the UK. I'm not sure how many people tuned in, but several thousand people had registered. I guess they had an online launch, huh? He got about 10 emails from people saying thanks, so at least some folks tuned in. I suspect we'll get some formal evaluations later. He gave 2 sessions on getting the most out of the IT infrastructure services in Windows Server 2003. Spend most of the day online, blah, blah, blah. Good stuff. So some positive comments. It sounds like around the world, the launch has been an incredible success. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Any indication the way it went today, it was a great day. It was really great.
They were a little rough in the morning, weren't they? I mean, New Englanders are a little terse in the morning, I think.
Well, what were they doing? Throwing bagels at the stage?
Just nothing. No, just nothing. It felt very uncomfortable at first. They were very... New Englanders, very skeptical. They don't, you don't just get up in front of a crowd first thing in the morning and crack jokes and loosen them up,
Yeah.
They want to see the meat first, and then they can have the dessert later.
I think a lot of them had a hard time just finding it to begin with. This casino is so big; it's like the largest casino in the world, and
it is.
There really wasn't any good signage up to get them over there. I think that was probably on purpose by the casino. They probably just wanted them to, stop off at the all the tables and spend money, but
get lost at the roulette table and not care. Well, anyway, Russ, let me ask you a question. Mark, you can jump in here anytime.
Sure.
That about the New England district, and I don't. This is the only district I live in, so I don't have a good perspective of what the relationship is like with the local Microsoft offices around the world, or at least in the United States. But I have the sense that from talking to you and talking to the people in this district, that we're pretty unique in terms of our reach and how many people that we reach, and also in terms of the relationship with the regional directors to the local Microsoft office, and your absolute evangelism with your Russ's Toolshed. Are there other Russ Fustinos out there?
Oh, we have several developer evangelists at Microsoft. I know a few of them. One of them out in Kansas City. Steve Lothan is a great guy down in Florida. Steve Codwell, Joe Healy, but I'm not aware of any developer seminar series that are going on like I kind of put together. And I think it's really a sense of a developer community here in New England that's really evolved over the years. I've been with Microsoft a little bit over 5 years, doing this pretty much the whole time. And, it's gotten to the point where our reach numbers are just incredible. Our district has the highest reach numbers in the country. And then we even have just about more than the entire central region, of the country. And we're just one district.
And that means what, a reach number? What is that?
Just a head count, how many people are attending your sessions, It's kind of like a really well-oiled machine at this point.
It really is
with all the pieces moving really, really nicely. Several folks on our team are developer evangelists, and so that all adds. Any of the events that they do, all goes into that big reach number.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a term I've heard in the radio industry for years. Reach is the count of listenership, basically.
Yeah, and personally, myself, I probably have presented to over, I'd say, 30,000 developers in the last 4 years, and a lot of those events are, I would say, small. It could be on site at a corporate account, 10 to 20 people. Or you can get into some of the larger sessions like we had today, with 1,000 at a pop. It's been quite a few developer sessions.
Is the content that you deliver for your Russ's Toolshed events, is that just content that comes from Microsoft to every district, or is it specifically for your thing?
No, we have corporate. It's called Msdn Content. It's a field content development group that develops a lot of the demos, the PowerPoints, that sort of thing. Make them available to pretty much anybody that wants to use them inside the company. And so that's a good amount of the material that I leverage, to do. And plus, a few of the demos that, I do on my own, I'll kick around and, throw those in as well.
I just think it's a great idea. And if other districts are out there listening, and other RDs or even people who want to get involved with the district, it's a great thing to have some, these shows that are put on for free. I'm sure they do it in other districts. I just don't know if they have any, particular spin like you have. I mean, you have a...
Sometimes what I'll do, too, is I'll take the existing content and I might take like the 2 or 3 best demos out of like a 2-hour session, and then take another 2 or 3, best demos out of another session, and I'll kind of like piece them all together into like a, like I do an intro to VB.net session, for example. That's 3 hours, and I pull information from maybe 3 or 4 of the content sessions that corporate provides to build that with.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, I'm curious about the Lost Weekends. You guys do these sessions on the weekend?
Yeah, it's a great name, isn't it? VB.net Lost Weekend.
Yeah.
For people with no lives, It's like me and Carl, because we actually teach it on weekends.
It's just a weekend you have to pretend didn't exist, basically.
Yeah, the people really find it very useful, our attendees and students that have come to the class, because sometimes it's tough to get away during the week. And,
that's the whole thing.
You're working every day, and it's tough, or if you're a consultant, it's even worse, because you don't want to give up those billing hours, right? And so we find it pretty convenient for a lot of folks to actually, plan out and give up a weekend, and then really just do some serious training,
Yeah. No, I always get a question from people, should I take the Lost Weekend or should I take the whole 5-day class? And, it's a common sense thing. I think if anybody's really thinking, they're definitely going to get more out of 5 days worth of coding than they are 2 days worth of coding. It just makes sense. You spend more time on every topic. You can do a few more topics that you don't have. So that's not the reason that you would go to the Lost Weekend, because it's like you can do the same and like we talk faster or something. I'm thinking maybe I should just go to the Lost Weekend. Yeah, you could. You certainly could. It's just the difference of, how prepared you're going to be after the class because of the time that you've spent. So the Lost Weekend really fills a nice niche. It fills the niche where, like Russ said, people can't get away during the week, but they really have to at least understand at an introductory level what development in VBNet is all about.
Yeah, I imagine you've had some guys that attended the Lost Weekend that came back for the 5-day class, haven't you?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And what we've been doing is we've been giving people, letting people apply the cost of the Lost Weekend to the master class if they want to take the master class. So you actually end up taking the Lost Weekend for free if you do go that route.
What a deal!
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Carl's a great guy.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Carl is going crazy. He says, let him go.
Let him go. Well, anyway, what are some of the... Obviously, you've been immersed in Microsoft technology and content for the last... How many years have you been doing this? 5 or 6 years now? What are some of the coolest things that you've ever, turned people onto in your sessions where you can just see the light bulbs going off and everybody gets really excited?
Well, every release of tools that we come up with is just a very exciting time for developers. It's just like they can't wait to see what's new, what are the things that are going to save them some pain, right, in developing applications? What are the things going to save them time, get the product out the door quicker? You really see some very, very true excitement around every time there's a new version of tools, and this version is no exception. It's pretty exciting to see, all the smiling faces out there in the crowd when we were presenting today. A lot of the things in terms of the ability to, for example, web service extensions, right? Being able to now secure web services without the use of HTTPS, right? You can go ahead and use the SOAP context class and go ahead and monitor X509 certificates, both coming in on the inbound side and the outbound side as well. And I got to tell you, that was a pretty compelling demo, just like you heard some of the notes there from the other RDs, right, during the launch events. So that's a whole new exciting area, and the ability to attach binary attachments, using the DIME protocol.
Files and things,
another good need that's, been in the marketplace for a while. So we're starting to see a lot of things evolve, in the whole web service development area.
Did you demo that stuff today?
Yeah, that was the very first demo I did in the VisualStudio.net overview session in the developer track.
Wow.
A lot of developers that I know are thinking, the new release is all about the compact framework and doing mobile development, but there's a lot there for just normal Visual Studio developers, right? Yeah,
there is, and those two areas are also very exciting, right? The mobile device development, and both the internet version of that as well as the handheld device version of that. In other words, the smart device extensions. And as a matter of fact, Carl and I did the session today on the mobile devices, and I was talking to some attendees afterwards. It's like, wow, I just can't wait to go home now and plug in my iPad and start developing applications for it. It was great.
Absolutely.
It was just great. And then there's so many other productivity enhancements, even right within the IDE. That really were really very cool. Improved IntelliSense. All these I'm about to say are just really little things, but boy, they just add up, and by the time you get done with all these things, you really start seeing some time savings on development work. The improved IntelliSense, like in the immediate window, for example, now you can go ahead and, debug dot, get the drop-down list there. Also, the dynamic help is a lot faster, and then startup time's a lot quicker in the Visual Studio IDE, and then the object browser. This is something that seems to change every version of tools as to where it is. Is it under the tools menu pull down? Is it somewhere else? And now it's really easy to get at this, because all you got to do is pull down your reference list, double click on one of your references, and up comes the object browser.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was very nice. And then the whole upgrade, going from VisualStudio.net 2002 to VisualStudio.net 2003 really is a piece of cake. It's great. Just go ahead and point your, open up Visual Studio 2003, point it at the 2002 project file. Comes up with a little dialog saying it's about to change your solution file and the VB-proj file or the CS-proj file, depending on what type of language you're using. And then that's it. It leaves all the source code intact, unchanged. And the demo I did there was the Duwamish 7.0 app. I loaded up that in its entirety and ran the whole app, and it worked just fine.
One thing that I've found people really have a hard time getting, or maybe it's they have a hard time believing that it's true.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that you can have version 1.0 of the framework in Visual Studio 2002 there, and when you upgrade, you really don't upgrade. You really don't upgrade. Upgrade is a word that means I take what's there and I convert it to a new format, or I change it. Mm-hmm. But what you're doing is you're just adding another version of the framework, another version of Visual Studio in addition to what's already there. So you're installing a whole new program, leaving the old program where it is.
Yeah, the only thing that's upgraded here in this case is just the project file itself and the solution file.
Yeah, right.
And that's really to take advantage of the new IDE features. You're so right, Carl. I think we got to come up with another name for this rather than an upgrade.
Yeah, it should be just another installation.
Yeah, because it is side by side. I mean, when you start poking around inside of the Windows.NET framework folders, you'll see the old version still in there and the new version, different directories. And all the items in the the GAC, you can see there's two elements in there, one for each version. Just click on, right mouse click on it, you can see the version number of each one. It's just truly amazing. I mean, that this is something that we've been talking about for a while now with the .NET framework being able to accommodate side-by-side assemblies. And this is really the first, I think, real-world implementation that a lot of developers are experiencing firsthand now, is how true that is, even with just Visual Studio itself.
What are some of the other little things you were going to mention there?
Oh, very cool thing with anyone that's using implements keyword. In VB, you can go ahead and just type in implements, type in the name, and boom, hit enter, and there it goes. Types into your whole interface, all your your methods and properties, all gutted out, ready to go. So it just really does a lot of typing for you automatically.
I like that.
I would compare that to cruise control in a car.
Absolutely.
Man, I mean, that may be a little thing, but definitely that makes the trip a lot smoother.
Yeah.
Oh, you said it.
Same type of thing goes on in C#. You just hit the tab key, and it goes ahead and creates that interface for you. So that's pretty cool.
And I like the fact that you type try, enter, and then you get a catch EX's exception and an end try.
Yeah, right. that one's a little overdue.
Just little things like that,
Yeah.
Man, I was having a talk with, I was talking with somebody about open source, and, I just can't. Oh, I'm so tired of it. These people think that the future of the world is going to be an open source operating system with Linux and some development tool that doesn't exist and never has existed. And geez, where are people getting all the time to write this code that they're talking about?
Yeah, they're smoking bananas.
They are.
Oh, and of course,
just put down the crack pipe.
Yeah, and then another one of the enhancements they liked a lot today was the new web service add web reference dialog. So when that comes up, you now don't have to memorize the URL and type it in. You can actually search either through UDDI or just right on your local machine, local host, right? And you just click a link and boom, up come all the web services. So you just click away and you got your web reference all set.
That's great.
We were talking about something earlier. If you wanted to build some redundancy in for a web service that's not available, that's there now.
That's right. Through UDDI, that's now a optional service you can install on Windows Server 2003, and you have the programming capabilities now with Visual Studio .NET 2003 to leverage that. Couple typical scenarios on that. One might be a runtime scenario where, a design time scenario where, say you got a developer that's creating some web services, maybe a pricing web service of some sort, maybe a few different versions of that, a couple different flavors. Maybe you got another developer in the organization that needs this kind of like pricing information. So he might use Discovery Services, UDDI, locally within the group, trying to just be like an informational feed for him to determine, what's the best pricing algorithm, web service that we have, what's the one that's appropriate for my application. Then once he's found that from like a research standpoint, he can go ahead and hardwire that into his application. And then there's the other side of that might be a runtime implementation of it. And this, I think, is really something that's also long overdue. A lot of times I get a question in my seminar, what if, I'm using a web service in my application and the web service goes down, right? Well, what you can do is you can wire up UDDI to do a refresh on the access point from your application. And what's really nice about this, if it's a client that's using that web service, the client won't even know that the web service is down. It won't even miss a beat, so it'll automatically get rerouted to the backup web service. I
actually have something to say about that.
Go ahead.
Why is the web service going down?
I don't know.
All right. Well, this is the question. If you're going to publish web services, you have to treat your web service box as mission critical as your web app, as your web environment. Somebody asked me this question. What if they change the name? I'm saying, all right. Does Bill Gates wake up in the morning and say, our URL www.microsoft.com is getting a little tedious. I think I'm going to change it to mscorp.com. It just doesn't make any sense. So what would happen is if you're publishing a server, you would have a separate machine for that server. You would have a DNS entry, server 1, services1.microsoft.com or whatever your company name is. And if you have to move it to another machine for any reason, you change your DNS entries. If you're publishing a web service and there's code out there that relies on your web service, you have to be up all the time. So anyway, that's my question is, why is the web service down? But you're right. If it does go down, I would venture to guess that it's because your internet connection went down. So
Yeah, that could be a...
Either that or you're using a web service which doesn't deserve your use.
Right.
Yeah, that gets into your service level agreements and
Right.
things of that nature that you would have with that web service provider.
It's true.
Another thing, too, that went over big was the community edition of .Fuscator, right?
Oh,
that ships now with Visual Studio .NET 2003. So a lot of developers, I think, feel better that their code is... messed up basically in the IL, so it's not as easy to disassemble it and detect some proprietary type things. So that's pretty nice.
I wrote an article for Msdn magazine on the new features in Visual Studio .NET 2003 and some in the framework too. And I forgot to mention that Preemptive is Microsoft's including Preemptive's community edition of .Fuscator. And they promptly sent me an email saying, you forgot to mention this, and so I'm sorry, Preemptive, and here's my restitution right here. We're talking about it.
Yeah, there's a more powerful professional edition available from Preemptive that you can upgrade to.
That's right. And,
how's that? Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
Plug.
I think that satisfied them. So anyway, what are some of the other key things that you took away from the launch event?
Well, just really the general excitement level. I thought I was very impressed with it. I think the thing that was a big crowd pleaser too was the pricing.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of current owners of Visual Studio .NET 2002 can upgrade to Visual Studio .NET 2003 for freaking $29. So that's pretty good, huh?
Freaking $29.
$29. Yeah, that was one of our contest questions that we had today. And did you see that slide when it came up? It was pretty funny. I had the $29 bouncing all around the screen.
Yeah, it was great.
All that. So up until I think September 30th, the deal goes. If you currently have, say, a professional version of Visual Studio .NET 2002, you can get the corresponding level in 2003 for $29. So you can go pro to pro, or enterprise to enterprise, or enterprise architect to enterprise architect.
And Mark, you said you had a coupon in your box.
Yeah, when I got my enterprise architect version of Visual Studio .NET, there was a mail-in coupon in there for the upgrade.
Now, did it mention 2003 as the name, or?
I don't recall if it mentioned a name on it or not. I mainly was attracted to the price of $29.
Yeah.
That's interesting. There's also a URL which we'll post.
Yeah, that's under msdn.microsoft.com/vstudio, and you can see the details out there on the product upgrade offer.
That's cool. And of course, if you have an MSDN subscription, you wouldn't even care because it's just going to come in the mail.
Right, and a lot of times that leads to the question, do I still need an MSDN subscription? And, well, this is a one-time deal that Microsoft is doing. There's no guarantee we will be doing something like this in the future. But the MSDN subscription in itself is worth it, even if you took out Visual Studio. I mean, just look at all the support phone calls that you get. You get 4 free support incidents. It's $1,000 worth of calls right there.
Wow.
And then, we got a new release of Office coming out in a few months. You'll be getting that, and plus, any other OSs or any other products we got coming out. And it's an exciting time. A lot of good stuff coming down the road that you'll want to get with your subscription. Not to mention the fact that you can just go online and download these things the day they come out.
Yeah.
So I've been running Visual Studio .NET 2003 for a few weeks now because I've been able to download it from the MSDN site and install it that way.
Right. I'm always curious about kind of the background of some of our guests. How did you come to work for Microsoft?
Well, I've been doing development work now for over 20 years, and I was actually teaching Visual Basic at Clark Computer Career Institute before I joined Microsoft, and I actually hooked up with one of the other co-instructors who worked for Microsoft, and so I ended up putting my resume in, got into Microsoft that way as a developer evangelist, and started out working with Bob Familiar, Larry Barnes, in a seminar series called Bob and Larry, and then we spun off Russ's Toolshed from there. So I pulled in a lot of other speakers along the way, a lot of consultants, other TSs. I had some of you guys speak at some of the events as well, some of the RDs and regional directors, and it's always been a personalized approach, right, to development. How-to, lots of code, and I have a newsletter I publish. It goes out to about 3,000 users. you can get at it through the Toolshed. It's rusttoolshed.net.
We'll have a link on the
Okay.
webpage. You worked for Aetna at one time as a developer, right?
Yeah, I started out my development career at Aetna Life and Casualty. Was there about 10 years, and did the full gamut really from COBOL mainframe programming, application development to I was a DBA for a while on the database side of things, and then went over to the network side of the house. So I got a lot of network experience in, and then started dabbling with PC development and actually the next job I had was over at Endeavor, which was a mainframe software control management system. I actually helped write that product, and so I wrote the PC version of that as one of the developers on that team, and then from there I went to IRI Software and did a bunch of Visual Basic development, over there. That's where I got the bulk of my VB experience.
One thing that's cool about that I learned about Server 2003 today was just the sheer performance. The numbers, the TPCC numbers, are just completely ridiculously off the scale now.
Yeah.
Ridiculously off the scale. There's nothing else that can touch it. I saw a spreadsheet of, cost performance analysis, how much it costs versus what the performance is, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, Microsoft has the top 10 high performant and lowest cost in the same category. I mean, they're just smoking everything else that's out there.
It's a good feeling.
It is. It really feels good. I'm also just struck by the simplicity of .NET programming, and that's sort of there's sort of been a philosophy at Microsoft that's been permeating about simplifying, and maybe it's been happening since Bill Gates took over the development thing. I don't know, but it's about simplifying the processes, simplifying deployment, simplifying development. And even though Visual Studio, the first time you look at it, simple isn't the first word that comes to mind. Once you get over the hump of the learning curve, it's really smooth sailing. I mean, it's really a lot simpler.
That's really it. I mean, even just the little tips and tricks that you pick up along the way. I was talking to an attendee after today's session, and she was telling me, man, I didn't know you could store code snippets in the toolbox.
Right.
And I didn't know you could just double click on one of those property window and it pops it out, and double click on the toolbar, it goes back in, getting rid of the docking hell type problems. And so she picked up a lot of things, just like that. And like you say, after you get used to using it, you start picking up those things. And I think a lot of our developer community here in New England is also very excited about .NET. I've personally started up probably about a half a dozen .NET user groups this past year. Now actually every state in the New England district has a .NET user group, and they're all really thriving. They're hooking into the INETA program, getting in speakers and all that kind of stuff.
We're going to be talking a bit about INETA in the weeks to come. The International .NET Association, they're a group that supports communities, in particular .NET communities. I just did my first gig as an INETA speaker. I'm on the Speakers Bureau, and the Speakers Bureau is just a list of speakers who agree to go speak at user groups, and INETA pays your way. And the user group decides who they want, and they contact INETA, and this and that happens, and bada bing, you're on a plane, and you're going to speak to these people. So I was just down at the capital area, Washington, D.C., the .NET users group down there, and Scott Locke heads up that group. Great guy, and it was well attended. There was about, 75 people at the session. They flew me down. I got lost in Washington, D.C. Don't ever drive in that town, by the way. It was the roads were not they were designed by people on horses or something. They were just 7 streets with the same name in different parts of town. It just, don't get me started on Washington, D.C. And everybody there thinks that there's some sort of logic to it, which okay. Anyway, I think they designed the streets to make intruders and people who are going to go try to assassinate the president get confused and end up in the wrong part of town. Well, anyway, I had a great time there, and I talked about asynchronous calls, and it was just overall a good experience. So we're going to be talking more about INETA, and we're going to be talking with some of the people involved in INETA coming up here.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Hey, did you ever put a button on a form and double-click on the button and see that sender as object and E as system event args and wonder what the heck that's all about? Well, if you're new to VBNet and you want to understand the event model, check out Basic Instincts, an article in this month's Msdn magazine. Ted Pattison writes this regular article, Basic Instincts. In this month's, it's called Programming Events of the Framework Class Libraries. And what he talks about is the event handler delegate and delegates in general and how they work in .NET, not just in VB.NET, but in the .NET framework itself. This is a great article, and it's a great series of articles, and you can get it online at msdn.microsoft.com/msdnmag. On the left-hand side of the screen, go to the Columns menu and select Basic Instincts, Programming Events of the Framework Class Libraries. That's this month, May 2003. If you're listening to this and it's past May 2003, you're going to have to go to the Back Issues section on the left-hand side of the page. Now let's get back to our talk with Russ Fustino on .NET Rocks. Don't you go away. Russ, do you have any favorite third-party tools that you've seen that you like?
Well, yeah, a lot of times my attendees are always asking me, just about every session I do, report writing tools. And some of the report writing tools, obviously Crystal Reports bundle right into the product, but also another one that's very good too is the one by Data Dynamics and Active Reports. And what I like about it is the fact that it has PDF filters, Excel filters, and both a Win version and a web version, right? So you have the ability to have like a Win web server control, for example, for reporting engines. So that's pretty cool. Also,
I believe the price is right on that one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a one-time shot. You pay for it up front for your developer license and then no royalty arrangements as well, which is very attractive. Yeah, and I think there was a really good. A lot of times they get asked for grid controls, and I think you got a good example for one of those, right, Carl?
Oh yeah. I fell in love with the Janus grid control. Go to Janus. We'll have a link to Janus up there. I think we mentioned them in an earlier show, but I really love them. It's basically everything that you need to do Outlook and Office.
Yeah.
The same kind of interface, the XP toolbars, the scheduler. There's a scheduler, there's a calendar, there's a Microsoft project style timeline, and then there's grids where you have built-in drag and drop functionality to group by different things, and hierarchical grids that have different colors for each hierarchy. Just unbelievable detail. And they're solid, too. I really have enjoyed using them.
Yeah, the Data Dynamics was nice enough to donate a copy of their product to my nonprofit group I work with, the Take a Swing at Cancer.
Hey, that's a good thing. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. That was,
what is that all about?
Well, a few years back, I helped organize a softball tournament, and all the proceeds were going to the American Cancer Society from that particular tournament. And then we continue to do it every year. And so finally I incorporated the company. It's called Take a Swing at Cancer. And now we run both softball and golf tournaments to help battle cancer. And we've been really pretty successful. I think the last softball tournament, we took in over $25,000. We had a lot of corporate sponsors, and we've been able to help a lot of families out with small kids suffering from cancer. And
that's great.
Adults, and we've also contributed some monies to some research organizations and also some of the big organizations too. And in fact, a lot of times now the Jimmy Fund, when they get recipients in to look for some additional help, a lot of times the Jimmy Fund actually refers them to us to help them out. So that's pretty cool. Yeah,
wow,
good stuff
that's
there.
Great.
And that's takeaswing.org. And like I say, we just revamped the whole site. It's all .NET now. I've got about a dozen volunteers helping me do the website. And so it's great because they're learning .NET and they're contributing their talents and time for a good cause. And
who
we're getting
plays the games?
Software donated by these different groups as well to help us out.
Who plays the games, Russ? Who plays the softball games?
It's a combination of sometimes just a pickup team from like the neighborhood might put an entry fee in, raise enough money to join in. Also, we get a lot of corporate accounts. So a lot of the like Microsoft, for example, played against Oracle a few years ago. So that was an interesting game.
Wow.
And a lot of other companies like EMC is involved usually a lot. Compaq sometimes will put a team in, and MathWorks and a lot of great companies. Workscape is in there every year, so a lot of good corporate sponsorship.
That's fantastic, and that's at www.takeaswing.org.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I got to ask, how did the game turn out between Microsoft and Oracle?
Well, Microsoft won the first year. The next year we lost, so we never had the rubber match, so I don't know.
Okay.
So it was a duel.
A deadly embrace.
Yeah, it was funny because the next morning after the first year, I had a Russ's Tool Shed event, and I came in and I, definitely announced the score of the game because Microsoft had won, so that was pretty good. The tool shed sessions are really a trip. They're a lot of fun. I come in dressed up. I've got my tool belt on, my suspenders on, a hard hat, a flannel shirt up here in New England. Fit right in up in Maine and New Hampshire with that outfit. And then I they love it too. It's great. We always have a great time. And I did that once. Sometimes I go dressed like that to an account. When I go there during the day. And one time I showed up at, I think it was Otis Elevator, and I got to the receptionist, and the guy looks at me, calls up the person I'm supposed to see, goes, "Your repairman's here," Like, no, I'm not a repairman. I'm here to, show software.
You should do a TV show called This Old Code.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
So what are the numbers in New England? How many developers are out there in the New England area? And I guess mostly they're concentrated around Boston and New York, right? In Hartford?
Boston's a very high technology area. There's a lot of developers here, all along the 128 loop around Boston.
Right.
It's really, been billed as the Silicon, Valley of the East, basically is what it is. And so a tremendous amount of technology there. And a good number of developers. I don't have an exact count. It seems like there's just an endless sea of them. All these developer sessions I keep doing, I constantly get new people. I get a good core base, but I always ask how many people is your first time seeing like a tool shed, that sort of thing, and I get maybe 30, 40%, 50% sometimes new hands going up, depending on what venue we're at. We do these events all over New England. A lot of different cities, Portland, Burlington, Vermont, and Nashua, Providence. We're hitting them all.
It really seems like there's a lot of companies embracing .NET in New England.
Yeah, you know what else I do too? A lot of times I'll do introductory sessions, like in the morning. Maybe advanced topics in the afternoon. So in the morning I might just do an intro to VB.NET, and you would just be surprised, how many developers come out for the introductory level topics. Either they're retooling, right, or maybe they've been using some of the older versions of the tools. They want to learn about some of the newer capabilities.
I tell you, I love teaching beginners. I love it because I can sort of break down the things that I take for granted and slow down and watch the light bulbs go on. It's always a challenge because I really remember learning. I remember how painful it was because the guys I was learning from didn't speak my language. They didn't relate to me. I couldn't relate to them. They were C++ and assembler programmers. So I'm trying to learn from these guys, and I remember the way my mind thought. And if I had just had the proper explanations for some things, it would have been easy. And then when I finally did hook up with some people who were able to explain things, it was like a breath of fresh air. It's like, it's no more struggling, So I really, really love teaching beginners. I had actually thought of doing a introduction to programming class using VB.NET. I don't have any way to judge what the response would be from that, so I really don't know.
That's a tough one. I've taught in those type of situations before. It's a real tough one.
It is, because typically these are people who are not on the job, making money programming already, so they don't necessarily have a training budget for it. There's a lot of money in it, but it's certainly a lot of fun. It's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, when I was teaching in the CTEC channel a lot, I used to teach the introductory VB6 class, and I remember one particular student that was a UPS truck driver.
Cool.
And he had saved up his own money to come to the class. And he went through the whole series. There were 3 VB6 classes, and stayed in touch with him for a while. But he got a job up in Atlanta and became a developer.
Wow.
And that was kind of his dream, to get out of the brown truck.
Huh. That's so cool. That's very, very cool. Yeah, it's an amazing thing. You know, you may be a UPS driver, and you may have a natural knack for programming. You just never know. You just never know until you try it.
A lot of musicians have a natural ability. I guess they say it's the same side of the brain or something like that has the logic, capabilities to it. And
I've heard that. Obviously that's a connection that you can't help but make. I've heard it. The best explanation I've heard is that particularly instrumentalists, like guitar players or piano players, because if you're a guitar or piano player, you're working on a presentation. You're working on something that's going to make it look easy, like a program. But the details of that, you have to work on very hard at the fundamental elements to construct it piece by piece. And so you really have this ability to zoom in to the details and zoom out to the whole presentation just on, in a millisecond, nanosecond time, be able to zoom in on a particular detail and, practice that run over and over and over again, slow it down, practice it more, and then pull back and do the whole thing a little faster and build it up in this way. So I think the whole process of programming is much like the process of learning an instrument.
Wow, what an analogy. So I got hope of becoming a musician then, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. You'd be a good bass player, don't you think, Mark? Don't you think, Mark?
What? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I know I can't sing worth a darn, so that's a problem I have. That's one of the reasons I became a developer evangelist, because I can still get up on stage. I love getting in front of a crowd, but
right,
I can't sing.
That's it, man. I'm going to teach you how to play bass.
My oldest brother's a musician, so it's in the blood.
I like to write code.
What'd you say, Mark?
I said I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, but I like to write code.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could. Maybe you could do both.
You have to give me a bucket, and we'll try it out.
You don't have to sing to be a musician. That's true.
Well, definitely that's the case with you, Carl. I mean, you're a very talented, gifted musician, and translates into writing code as well.
I stumbled on programming by accident. I just loved it the first time I did it. Probably because I'm a control freak,
I can't believe it. You're one of the most laid-back guys I know.
Well, it's like, here's a passive mind that I can mold in electronic format. Mad scientist.
First time I came across programming was in high school, my senior year, back in, I think it was 78 or 74, and it was Fortran. It was the language on punch cards and all that kind of stuff. But boy, I knew right from that class that's what I wanted to do, and it was like no turning back.
It's an infinite puzzle that you could never fully solve.
Yeah.
You'd always have fun trying.
Yeah, I hate to tell you why I got into programming, but I worked for a company, and
this is great.
I noticed the programmers drove cool cars. It's true. And I thought, I want to be a programmer so I can have a cool car.
With cool license plates, right, Carl?
Absolutely. Like
so the end of that story is I just bought a van, so, I don't know how cool that is.
Well, Mark, you had a couple of degrees first, right?
Yeah, I have a degree in mathematics and one in physics. So I don't know what I plan to do one day, but
wow.
I was kind of a techno geek there.
Yeah, I got my bachelor's in computer science, and then I got the MBA in information systems. So that was a good match.
If I could go back, I would probably get a degree in computer science, and I would minor in accounting. Yeah. And I'd be out of school in 3 years rather than 6.
I had a major in instrumental music at Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Yeah.
And then I went to a recording school, and then I took about 2.5 years of college here and there, and started working at Crescent Software. And hey, do you want to stay here and have a career, or do you want to go back to school? And I swear to God, at my school at the time, they thought Basic was a toy language. And I was in a programming class where in the third week they were still passing around a floppy disk, looking at it and trying to figure it out. This is a floppy disk. We'll have a test tomorrow. And, the question marks were hanging over the students' heads, and I was way beyond them. So I said, yeah, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of education, one of my job functions as a developer evangelist is always to make developers aware of the different things they have available to them, really to, like you say, make them, work smarter, faster, that
Right.
sort of thing. And one of the things that's available up on our site are the webcasts. Really just great. They're hour and a half. You just feel like you're sitting in a classroom. You can, chat with the instructor. Those are all real good. Also, the Msdn Flash newsletter, comes through every 2 weeks. A lot of great information on there with all the latest, knowledge-based articles that people are reading, and lots of good information available to you. And the other thing I did want to mention real quick too is the new certification that we came out with this past November.
VBNet
is the Microsoft Certified Application Developer Certificate you can get. And
that's cool.
Yeah, that one there involves taking 3 exams.
You actually took that?
Yeah, I was out in Redmond in January. I think I took all 3 tests in a 26-hour period. I don't recommend that for anybody. My head was like mush by the time I got done with it, but I passed all 3 of them, so that was pretty cool. And it was nice because we had a team dinner that night out there, and came in with the good news. Everybody's like cheering and yelling. It was really cool. It was cool.
What's it like for the average developer to just pack up and go knock on Microsoft's door and say, "Hey, can somebody give me the tour?" I mean, do they do that?
The tour?
Just can I talk to somebody? Can I? Is Microsoft accessible to your average programmer?
Well, that's one thing I always try to do and reach out. And I think the whole developer, that's one of the purposes of the developer evangelism community is to provide that type of service, and really make it comfortable for developers to communicate to Microsoft and vice versa, to get the information out. And I know I always try to do that because I know how hard it was before I came to Microsoft, right, to get an answer to maybe just a simple question.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And so I always try to help out. I get too many emails, but I still try to keep up with them. You know what I mean?
Well, we pass them around too. I mean, one of the things that students in my class get is email access. Email support after the class, and I promise, and I've kept all my promises, that if I don't have an answer, I can forward it to, the people who have the answer. And typically, we've been in a class, for example, where I've had a question about something in the database and nobody knew the answer to it. Fired off an email to Bill Vaughn, went to lunch, came back, and he'd answered it for me. And that's just a very cool thing to have, and so don't think that you can just flood Bill with email questions. But what I'm saying is that it's just very cool for me personally to know all these great minds and to, on a personal level, and every once in a while we help each other out.
There's also another thing for Msdn subscribers to make it a little easier to get the answers to these types of questions. There is it's called the Msdn managed news groups, as opposed to the unmanaged, right? Where you just put
there's a garbage collector
and hope you get an answer.
So there's a garbage collector, is what you're saying?
There's a garbage collector. Yeah, there's actually someone looking at this stuff, and you are actually guaranteed a response from someone from Microsoft.
Spammessage.dispose. That's great.
Yeah, so that's another little service I always try to recommend.
And that's only for MSDN.
Msdn subscribers. Yeah, that's a benefit of getting a subscription.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to. We'll put links to all these things on the website.
Yeah.
Well, Russ, I know you're tired. You've been going on 4 hours sleep every night for the last month.
Yeah, I told my kids I was like prepping for a final exam. They're both in college. So they can equate to that.
So we'll let you go, and on behalf of the public, and on behalf of myself and Mark and everybody out there listening, thank you so much for talking to us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Enlightening us.
Yeah, this was fun.
It's been fun, Russ. We appreciate it.
Sure thing, Mark.
Keep up the good work.
Okay. Well, we'll do.
Hey, and I'll see you on Derby Day with the mint julep, huh?
Okay.
All right.
You can sit out on the porch.
Absolutely.
Under the mimosa tree.
That's it, man. All right. Thanks a lot, Russ.
Okay.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.